Hello friends, my name is Hardik Harsora and I'm your management consultant helping your business grow even during a pandemic like this. We are running this series where I'm encouraging you to action things. I did two videos, this is the third one. And after the first video, people asked me, what should I action, Hardik? So I did the second one. If you've not checked that out, please do check that video. After the second video, a few people messaged me questions. I'm going to take one question that came across from multiple people. The question was, Hardik, our customers are not placing orders with us. How do I action in that scenario? Well, it's a legit question. But before I get into the answer, let me congratulate everybody that had the guts or to action and ask me this question, because sitting with that question was not going to help. Asking this question, I am going to give you the solution. So I have 4 points to tell you, and in fact I'm going to break this video into two parts because there are two options that you have. So option number one, there are four questions that you must ask yourself. Number one, how long do you have to wait for your kind of customers to start giving you orders? It could be 2 months, it could be 3 months, it could be 4 months, it could be a year. What is that time? Okay, and when you answer this question, don't have a guesstimation in your head. Talk to at least 10 to 20 of your customers and ask them how their business is and what they are thinking and how much of a damage has this lockdown done to them. That is the true answer to how soon would your customers be back to purchase the kind of products that you are selling. Okay, the second question that you got to ask yourself is, if that period is, let's say, 2 months, then do you have the money to sustain without doing sales, as in wait and do nothing for those 2 months? If the answer to that is yes, then I have two more questions for you. But if the answer to that is no, then you got to look out for option number two, which I'm going to shortly say. So let's assume you have the bandwidth to sustain. Then what do? So you ask the third question. The third question is, who in your competition is not going to survive because they don't have the money to wait that long? Obviously, you know your competitors is what I'm assuming. Think of who they are serving to, who are their customers. And then the fourth question is, figure out a way to reach their customers. Look, there is always an opportunity when disruptions happen. And this lockdown and this pandemic is a big disruption. People who can think through and ask the right questions are going to be winners. People who can't think through or don't ask questions and don't action are either going to be staying where they are, and in most often than not in cases, they are going to go down. So you got to figure out which are the people who are not going to ask questions, who are not watching a video like this, who are not going to action. Those guys are going to lose business. And who are they going to lose business to? They are going to lose business to people who are thinking, asking the right question, and then actioning. So figure out who those guys are who are not going to survive for that 2 months, 3 months time, and their customers are going to be left with no option but to buy from somebody else. You can be that somebody else. So this is option number one. You should go ahead and do this. Now, option number two, assuming you can't survive for those 2 months, okay, or you feel that the customer is going to not buy from you for about 6 7 months or 1 year, or you don't know when things are going to come. If it is too speculative, which means you cannot say for certain that yes, my industry is going to be back on the saddle. Now at that time, it's extremely important to not make a fool of your own self. All business owners are brilliant salespeople, but that's exactly what we do not need to do. We should not sell it to ourselves the comfort of the fact that you don't know where the industry is going. Accept the fact that you don't know where the industry is going and then do the following. So before I really get into telling you what that response is, let me first give you a few examples, okay, because that will clarify your doubts. First thing is, we all used to buy compact disc. I used to, in fact, as a kid, do business of compact disc also. We used to write the disc for softwares and for movies, and I used to sell it. That entire industry got washed out with newer technologies, with YouTube, etc. coming in. People don't use those discs. People use internet and stream videos from there. That industry got washed out. There are so many other industries that are not washed out, but they are mightily disrupted. For example, in Mumbai, where I am, there used to be these taxis. We used to call it black and yellow taxis. Their businesses got disrupted because of the private taxis. Their private taxis understood what the requirement of the customer is. The requirement is to get a taxi in absolutely crowded places. They understood that, they facilitated, they solved that problem, and there they were. It was never about driving a car. In the same way, video streaming, the compact disc industry, it was never about the compact disc or a cassette. It was always about the content. If the content can be delivered online, people are consuming it for the content, not for it being on a cassette or on a disc. Now, there are several other examples that we can think of, like Airbnb disrupted the hotel industry. Why? Because they kind of started providing accommodations which are nice, beautiful, and you don't really need to go to a hotel. So many people I know of, and I think you would agree to me if you travel international, would prefer to choose Airbnb over hotels. It's a fantastic location. The service is very good wherever there are serviced apartments, and it's cheaper than going for the hotel. So there are disruptions that happen. You know what causes that disruption? The understanding of what is the problem and building a solution to that problem. Now, a lot of you listening to this video are people who have pre-COVID era, pre-lockdown, have operated in a market which is extremely crowded, discounts and credit periods, right? This is your opportunity to not do that. So how are you going to do it? First thing, identify your core skill. What makes you a businessman in what you do? So I was recently having a conversation with one of our Propel board members, and his core skill, he used to make customized uniforms for the hotel industry. His core skill is actually stitching a customized garment. Now, if you remove the customized, it's still stitching a garment, right? And in fact, customized garments require precision stitching. It requires very good level of stitching because you can't go wrong. So he's mastered, his entire organization has mastered the art of stitching. So you got to recognize what your core is really. Ask yourself this question. Second, you got to ask yourself, this core is solving what problem? So like for example, in this case, it is solving a problem of stitching or making a wearable garment. That's the problem that it is solving. The third thing that you got to ask yourself is where and who. In fact, these are two questions. Where and who requires garments to be stitched at this point in time? And then you may get several options. Options could be, okay, PPE, personal protective equipments, that's like the whole dress. Maybe they require a lot of garments. Chances are hospital staff requires a lot of garments. Chances are airports, which are now starting, they would require uniforms. Those are the guys. Worst case scenario, all of us are not going to stop wearing clothes. And there are going to be companies which are going to shut down, like I said in the option one, which are going to shut down because they will not action. And they have customers. There are brands who are going to come out with a different fashion, maybe a t-shirt which has a mask with it. The design of the t-shirt is that. So everywhere where stitching can be applied, you got to list all of that down and then see, okay, which market is willing to pay even in this situation and is a big market, and try and capture that market. Don't fall in love with the customer that you earlier acquired. Otherwise, we will all end up making a mistake that Kodak did once upon a time. They laughed when the engineer got them a digital camera. The board responded by saying, "It's cute, but don't tell anybody." You know why? Because they did not realize what their core was. They were in the business of memories, not in the business of the medium on which the memory is given to the people. So don't fall in love with what your current offer is or what your pre-COVID era offer is. Fall in love with your core and figure out a market that requires your core, and there are few suppliers and you can solve that problem. That's my option number 2. Now, both of these options put together, remember guys, this is no easy work. I acknowledge that. And therefore, some of you may say, Hardik, you know what? This is not easy. This is going to take a lot of time. Well, then you have got to ask yourself 2 questions. 1, is it less costly for me to wait and do nothing? Or is it costly for me to do something that I believe in? I'm not saying close your eyes and jump into the well. No, do your research. And if you don't know how to do your research, that calls for yet another video, which I am going to do if you have this question. So all that I'm saying is action, my friends, because that is exactly what is going to get your business up the saddle. If you have questions, ask those questions. If you have problems, solve those problems. If you don't know how to solve the problem, take professional help and solve the problem. There was somebody who called me and said, Hardik, I don't know how to go about the government loans. I said, okay, go talk to your CA, go talk to your banker. Banker also does not know. So I said, okay, fine, figure out people who work with government. Said, yeah, but I know people who don't know anything about that particular department of the government. I said, fine, talk to anybody that you know in the government and you will get the link. But if you sit here asking me who does not have an answer and does not have a link to connect to the right person, you won't get anywhere. So start actioning, start solving problems as they come. And if you solve enough problems, you will reach home. So until we meet next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, keep actioning, and yes,